Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gascharayanta Vavitura Odanam Ramachyutatho Volasatho Babukshita Tayor Vija Odanamartha Norgati Shraddha Chayo Yacchata Dharma Vittama Rama and Lord Achyuta are tending their cows not far from here. They are hungry and want you to give them some of your food. Therefore, O Brahmins, O best of the knowers of religion, if you have faith, please give some food to them. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, text 23, entitled, The Brahmin's Wives Blessed, text number 7. In the previous chapter, Krishna revealed the pure devotion, the unmotivated, loving service of the young gopis in the pastime where he took their clothes high on a kadamba tree while they were taking their baths in River Yamuna. In this wonderful pastime, we learn how, in order to really come before the Lord and receive the true reciprocation of the Lord that the soul, the heart is yearning for, we must relinquish the external artificial garment of our ahankar, or false ego, where we identify with so many temporary material designations. And to the extent we identify with these designations, we come under the influence of the forces that control material nature. Passion, ignorance, some goodness. We become fearful. Fearful because we are under our whole identity is under the control of time. Time is the all-powerful, all-pervading presence of the Lord within creation. In the spiritual world, it is said that time is conspicuous by its absence. But in the material world, time is all-pervading. It's affecting everything. From the subtlemost neutrons, protons, electrons of the atomic particles, to the massive planets. From the Indragopa, the tiny little bacterial insect, to Indra, the leader of the demigods. Abrahma Pubanar Loka Punar Avartanorjana. From Brahma Loka to Patala Loka. Everything at all times. There's not a moment anywhere within creation that anything material is not being affected by time. So this is the cause of fear. When we identify with these material bodies or these material minds, dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Everything is perishing. No one can hold on to anything. Life is so short. We try to make the most out of it. But if we look at the pages of history, how many thousands of years have passed just in our very minute understanding of history by academic scholars. Our lifespan is insignificant. And if we read the more broader conceptions of history, as we find in the Vedas, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Srimad Bhagavatam, we realize our lifespan is totally insignificant. But durlabhamanava janma lobhya samsare. But still, human life is the most precious thing in all of creation. Because human life has especially been given the blessing in which we have the opportunity to realize our eternal self, Satchit Ananda, that we are eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And the Sanatan Dharma, the eternal nature of the self, which is the loving service to the Supreme Self, or Krishna. This is the opportunity that we have. But in order to realize that opportunity, in order to know Krishna, to love Krishna, and to experience Krishna's love for us, we must somehow or other come out from the covering of the ahankar, or the false ego. The false ego is like a dark cave. Krishna's grace is like the shining sun. It is shining always for everyone. When Krishna says that he reciprocates according to our surrender, Krishna's love is infinite for everyone, always. His reciprocating is according to how much we want to reciprocate with his love, according to how we open our hearts, come out of the cave of our false ego. Krishna simply reveals that love to us. Suhrida Sarvadehina. Krishna tells in Gita that he is the best well-wishing friend of everyone. Now, a true well-wishing friend, whether we are healthy or diseased, whether we are in success or failure, whether we are in enlightenment or illusion, a friend's love for us is always. Srila Prabhupada wrote at the end of each letter, "Your ever well-wisher." That's a very powerful statement, ever well-wisher. That means he's a well-wisher unconditionally, whether we follow him or don't follow him, whether we become saints or we fall from our position. whether we're able to do great things or small things. He's our ever well-wisher. He's always caring for us. He's always praying for us. He may be pleased by what we're doing. He may be displeased. An ever well-wisher is pleased when we're doing what's good for ourselves, and displeased when we're doing something that's not good for ourselves. That's a friend. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Krishna at the time of death is willing to be there for any of us if we remember him, if we call his holy name. So Prabhupada is our ever well-wisher. If we hide in the caves of our egos, then we may forget his ever well-wishing, loving grace upon us. And in that state we suffer terribly. And that displeases him to see us suffer terribly. And to enjoy material life without connection to our eternal soul also causes the great souls to suffer terribly. In the sense that they see that we are suffering terribly. So ever well-wisher means unconditional, always. Reaching hand out, no matter what. It's according to us whether we extend our hand to receive or not. So by the gopis giving their clothes and coming out of the water as Krishna instructed, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, they offered Krishna their pure, eternal souls with love, with no ego, no material designations. And then after this, in the next story of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna with his gopas are traveling through the forests of Vrindavan, and Krishna is extolling the glories of the trees. How magnanimous, how kind the trees are. How they extend their mercy to everyone. In the sun, in the summer, the trees give shade. In the cold of the winter, they give wood to keep warm. The quality of the tree is anyone who comes to it. The tree is eager to give of itself for their benefit. And this is, from a spiritual perspective, this is a very important quality of titiksha, or tolerance. In the Vaishnava school, everything we do is samsiddhir haritoshanam, is for Krishna's pleasure, even when we tolerate. When we tolerate the urges of greed, tolerate the urges of envy, tolerate the urges of lust, anger, tolerate the urges of false pride, tolerate the urges of all illusions. We are doing it to please Krishna. We are not simply doing it so we will not be entangled in suffering. Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagatisha kami. Mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatad bhakti rohite gidvai. A devotee, whatever, is not concerned with wealth or fame or sense gratification or even liberation from suffering. A devotee's eagerness is to please Krishna, to serve Krishna, unconditionally. So we tolerate these urges because only then can we really be servants of Krishna. Otherwise we become servants of the ego, the mind, and the senses. And it pleases Krishna when we are willing to accept inconveniences for the welfare of others. Because after all, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskram dharma samstapanaradaya sambhavami juge juge. It's only because of his causeless mercy that Krishna comes to this world. It's only out of causeless mercy upon all living beings that Krishna sends his loving devotees to endure so many trials and tribulations within this world. Haridas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed that he is the crown jewel of creation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Haridas himself that I am only finding pleasure in this world because of my association with you. And yet why Haridas had to be beaten to 22 marketplaces? Why he was insulted, he was blasphemed, so many things were going against him. Srivas Thakur, so many injustices to him. Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, so many difficulties he had to endure, so many betrayals among people he gave his heart to. In other religions, Jesus was crucified. These are the Lord's devotees. They endure so much to show compassion to the people who are in bondage. Why? Because that's Krishna's reason for descending into this world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the internal reasons why he came was to experience the glory. Krishna wanted to experience the glories of Sri Radha's love. He wanted to understand what she experiences when she realizes the sweetness of his love. He wanted to understand what it was about him that awakened such ecstasy in her. This is the most intimate, confidential lila of love between Radha and Krishna that are being manifest in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But why does he do it in this material world? Especially because he has three external reasons. To propagate the Harinam Sankirtan movement, to fulfill the wish of Sri Advaita Prabhu. And what was the wish of Sri Advaita Prabhu, who was playing the role of a devotee? That the Lord descends to give refuge, solace, hope, and shelter to the people who are suffering. To give love of God, love for Krishna, to people who are so much covered by the cloak of the ego. And to fulfill his promise in the Gita that he does descend again and again out of compassion. So this is the principle that Lord Chaitanya is revealing to us through the behavior of a tree. There are so many trees everywhere. Not so many in Mumbai. There's laws to protect trees because humans are so eager to cut them down for their own conception of progress. To build more buildings, to make more money, to be more comfortable, just cut them down. At one time, this area was covered with thousands and thousands of trees. And the trees never protest. They just cut down. They just cut down and just for people's profits. You cut down trees, then you build a building, and you sell the flats and the apartments, and you make millions of dollars or millions of rupees. And in the meanwhile, you sell the wood of the tree and make a few more rupees. Who cares? So in some places, they actually have to make laws to protect the trees. Even in Vrindavan, people were, even today, recently cutting down the forests, the beautiful forests of ancient trees. Even trees where Krishna had his leelas, that doesn't matter. Just cut them down and make a few rupees. And some of our dear devotees were actually fasting, having kirtan and fasting until the government made laws to protect certain areas of the forest from cutting down the trees. But the trees didn't protest. But thinking people, we have to protest. Not only all the explanations of how trees give, but so much of the oxygen that human beings and all living beings on this earth planet breathe all over the world are very much determined by the offerings given by the trees. So we may not notice the trees so much because of their apparent silence. But Krishna, he is noting the qualities of every tree. And he's not telling us to cut the trees. He's telling us to become like the trees, in the sense of being tolerant and being giving. And then the next story, which is like an evolution of instructions, is the one we are reading today. Krishna and his little friends are wandering through the forest, and they have become very hungry. Now, as it has been explained in the previous classes here at Radha Gopinath Temple, through the past verses that have been explained, a true devotee is always thinking of what pleases Krishna. And it's true that we have our own experiences, especially while we're in this world and in these bodies. We have different experiences of the mind. We have different experiences of the body. And it's artificial just to try to ignore and negate them because they're there. We can only negate for a certain amount of time. But the nature of a devotee is to see all of it in relationship with Krishna. If the cowherd boys are feeling a little hungry, what is their consciousness? That means Krishna must be hungry. Because we've been here this long. Yeah, they're not seeing Krishna as God. They're seeing Krishna as a loving friend. They know he's God, but they're beyond that. Krishna has fully revealed himself as God to them, and now beyond. Now I'm just your loving friend. So if they're feeling a little hungry, they're not thinking, oh, I need food. They're feeling a little hungry and they're thinking, Krishna must be hungry. And their main concern is that Krishna has food. Sometimes we're the opposite. We're hungry and then we make an offering to Krishna and I think, Krishna, I'm offering this to you because I'm so hungry. And then when the plate is on the altar, we're thinking, God, there's still 7 more minutes till Krishna finishes. And then as soon as that 7 minutes expires, oh, Krishna, thank you. That's all right, because you're acknowledging Krishna first. That's good tapasya. Don't be ashamed if you're like that. Be happy. But at the same time, understand and focus on the standard. That our real goal is that if we're feeling hungry, we should be thinking, oh, how much Krishna should be hungry. And Prabhupada explains, as we actually make spiritual advancement, when we offer Krishna nice prasad or bhoga, then we become completely satisfied. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the role of a devotee, on many occasions, devotees would make an incredible feast, and they knew they had to offer it to Krishna first before Lord Chaitanya would take it. So they would have an amazing feast, whether it was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya or Sri Advaitacharya or Shivananda Sain. They would make wonderful feast, Raghava Pandit. And Lord Chaitanya, he would see it, and he would be so happy. He said, I'm so happy that Krishna had such a feast. Now just give me some boiled vegetables and little plain rice. That's all I need. I'm happy that Krishna ate so nicely. And the devotees they made it for Lord Chaitanya. Because as far as they're concerned, he is Krishna. Because he is Krishna. They said, no, you take. He said, I am sannyasi, I only take little boiled vegetables. I'm happy that Krishna ate so nicely. And Sri Advaita would say that, but Krishna wants you to taste everything he tasted. So that was a good argument. It will please Krishna if you eat everything. So because his devotee is saying this, he's honoring his devotee so much. If it pleases Krishna that I eat every preparation, then I will do it for Krishna. And he would. And he would take, and Advaita would try to give more, and he would say, no more, and Advaita would say, Krishna will be happy if you eat more. And he would eat more, not for himself, but to please Krishna. And a more deeper, intimate understanding of this is Das Das Anudas, which is Mahaprabhu's teaching and his spirit. Because pleasing a devotee is what pleases Krishna. So Advaita Sarvabhauma, they are saying, if you eat all these things, Krishna will be happy. And Mahaprabhu, if I please you, Krishna will be happy. So he would eat it in this way. Of course, he didn't do that with Jagadananda Pandit. So Jagadananda Pandit would give him all kinds of sense gratificatory things, and Lord Chaitanya would say, no, I cannot take. So devotees, you see, in our scriptures, in our Vaishnava philosophy, in our histories, you can take one side or the other and really become a soldier to defend it. But there's harmony. On one hand, Lord Chaitanya was extremely strict to not accept any kind of things that are pleasing to the body, to show what renunciation is. On the other hand, to please his, and in doing so, he very much displeased his devotee, Jagadananda Pandit. But then when Jagadananda Pandit started fasting, because Lord Chaitanya wouldn't accept the oils and the bed, then Lord Chaitanya would go to him and say, just cook whatever you want and I will eat it. And then when Jagadananda was feeding him, it says Lord Chaitanya kept eating more in fear. That if he didn't, Jagadananda Pandit would fast again. So there's a very fascinating balance that we learn through these wonderful pastimes. So the boys, if they feel hungry, their immediate thought is, if I'm feeling hungry, what Krishna must be feeling. It's the nature of love. It's like Srila Prabhupada explains that a mother's love, a good mother, because this is Kali Yuga, there's so many varieties of mothers. But a good loving mother, their love is very indicative. It indicates the nature of the love of the soul for Krishna, in the sense that it is selfless. It's like if a mother is with her little baby, and they're both dressed kind of the same way. Of course, different sizes. And it's freezing cold. And the mother's really feeling cold. What is she going to think? Is she going to think, well, I'll put my baby down somewhere and put blankets on myself and get warm? No, before she even thinks anything about herself, because she's cold, she's thinking the baby must be cold. My baby. If it's extremely hot, she's going to be thinking, my baby must be very hot. That's the nature of love. And in bhakti, even our own experiences in this world, if we're not totally dead to them, to our experiences in this world, then even them, they incite our remembrance of Krishna in very special ways. Just like there has been some temples within our society worldwide where an earthquake strikes. And everything's moving, and the building starts crumbling. And it's one thing that devotees think, let me get out of here. But for the more advanced devotees, they immediately, based on realization of the philosophy, they practically instinctively ran right to the altar to pick up the deities and take them out. Because they felt the experience of the earthquake about to destroy their life, they immediately thought Krishna's life. This is bhakti. This type of reciprocation. And even if you don't feel it yourself, if Krishna may feel it. So the Gopas, they approached Krishna and said, we are so hungry. Please save us. Oh, Balaram, you are so powerful and strong and the performer of heroic deeds. And oh, Krishna, you are so kind and loving to all your devotees. Please extinguish this hunger from our hearts. And they really, sincerely came before Krishna like they were really hungry. Because if they said to Krishna, we think you're hungry, so we want to get some food for you, Krishna would probably say, oh, no, I'm not hungry, let's play. But if they say we're hungry, then Krishna would say, oh, then here is the way to get food. So in this way, the gopis would dress beautiful. Not so that they could look in the mirror and say, I am so beautiful. I could be a Bollywood star. I could be a front page of magazines. They were not thinking. They would look at themselves in the mirror just to see, will Krishna enjoy my beauty? Their every move, their every word, their every decision was only for Krishna's pleasure. Because ultimately we want to give Krishna the best that we have. Every devotee, we try to be clean because it pleases Krishna when we're clean. So they approached Krishna in this way. We are so hungry. Please save us, because you always save your devotees. And Krishna is telling them that you should go. He was thinking in his mind that the wives of these Brahmins who are doing yajna are my great devotees. I will fulfill their desire. But just see how he does it. He tells the boys, go to the Brahmins who are performing this sacrifice and ask them for food. Because actually it's an auspicious time for them to give the food in charity. And when you go to them, Balaram is a Kshatriya. So say Balaram is hungry. And I'm also hungry. So in these verses, the little boys, they go to the Brahmins and Hare Krishna. O earthly gods, please hear us. We cowherd boys are executing the orders of Krishna. and we have been sent here by Balaram. We wish all good for you. Please acknowledge our arrival. In today's verse, Lord Ram and Lord Achyuta are tending their cows not far from here. They are hungry and want you to give them some of your food. Therefore, O Brahmins, O best of the knowers of religion, if you have faith, please give some food to them. And then they explain how it was actually a very auspicious time in their sacrifice to give food. And the Brahmins, they heard the supplication, and they didn't even acknowledge the existence of the cowherd boys, which was really an insult. It's one thing to say, oh, little boys, sit down, we're really too busy now, if you can just wait for some time. Or it would have been better if they said, oh yes, here it is, or we'll call our wives, they'll get it for you. But they didn't look at them. They didn't say a word to them. They totally ignored them, because they felt what they were doing was so important. It was such an elevated activity performing these sacrifices. They were totally fixed in the materialistic purposes of their sacrifices. Now, they were Brahmins. They were extremely pious, extremely moral, extremely ethical by all material standards of worldly dharma. But the boys, even though they could sense that these Brahmins were stuck in material conceptions, it even says, before the Brahmins said anything, the boys said these things, but in their hearts, it says there was a type of sarcasm. But still, they didn't say it in a sarcastic way. They said it in a very respectful way. And it's very interesting. The cowherd boys, who are Krishna's intimate, loving associates, are calling these people, "O earthly gods." Please acknowledge our arrival. O best of the knowers of religion. So they're praising him very nicely. And in one sense, Prabodhananda Saraswati, he explained this is how we should preach to important people.